Okay. So, my name is Dr. Keller, and I'm going to be your professor for this semester. And this is Philosophies of the World. That was a joke. I know, I'm really not funny. And to prove that, I have this sort of routine, more of a tradition, I think it is, where I tell jokes, but I have to use cue cards. And the reason I have to do that is because I'm not really funny. That's what my children tell me. So they help me out by writing the jokes. Okay? So you guys want to start the semester with a couple jokes? Okay. And then we have some riddles. These are riddles, and we're gonna. They have nothing to do with mythology nor philosophies of the world, but I thought we'd go through, see if you guys could grab some of these after maybe taking a summer off. Okay, how about this one? Why did the man freeze his money? Really? See, by the end of the semester, you guys start getting my humor, or actually my kids' humor on a cue card, and then you'll actually get these jokes. It's kind of nice. He wanted cold hard cash, or maybe you're just shy and not ready to speak up. Okay. How about this one? What did the tree say to the wind? What did the tree say to the wind? Leave me alone. Okay. Ba-boom. All right, so can you guys get any of these? These are actually a little more challenging. So they're numbers. So these are numbers that we use in the United States. 1 in the upper left-hand box, just in case you haven't seen these before. They're not Roman numerals. Okay, they're not some foreign language. These are actually numbers that we use here, although we didn't invent them. And then there's text. And the text is where the challenge is. They are in numerical order from left to right, in case you're curious. So shout out the number of the box and what you think the riddle is. Or they're actually sayings. I think that's a better word for it. They're sayings.
1.
1.
History repeats itself.
History repeats itself. Nicely done. Okay. Anybody else?
2.
2. Oh, we're just going to go in order? This is awesome.
Ring around the rosy.
Ring around the rosy. Very good.
19.
19.
Banana
Banana split. I like that one. Oh! And you can take a picture of this because I lifted it from somewhere else.
7.
7.
Evermore.
Evermore. Oh, that's one I didn't have. Evermore? You think so? Where's the ever? I see E. How about 4? I'm not necessarily bonded. I have a list of how we cracked them, and 6 and 7 are blank. So 7 was one that we didn't get. You guys agree with? I don't know if I'm into forevermore. Or evermore. Maybe forevermore. Yeah, 4 more. Still not sure on that one. That was a good try though. But maybe we'll just go with it. Anybody else? 16. What's that?
I'll be there in a minute.
I'll be there in a minute. Very good. I'll be there in a minute. That's actually kind of a clue. A lot of them are like that strategy. What was that? 6?
Is it mealtime?
Mealtime. I don't know. I didn't get this one.
4 square meals. That's my word.
Ooh, maybe it's 4 square meals. Mealtime. I just don't know where you get the time from. It is the shape of the clock. Okay. Okay.
5. Under arrest.
5, you're under arrest. Yes, I agree. You're under arrest. Very good. So maybe it's mealtime, or maybe it's 4 square meals. They're in square. There's 4 of them. Meals. I don't know. 6 and 7 are ones I didn't have, so that's good. How about? Can you guys read 18? Microscope. Nice. Yeah, I thought that one was relatively appropriate for today. So, okay, we're not going to talk necessarily about this all semester, but this was kind of get you warmed up. Okay, we can do some more of those. But I wanted to walk through a little of the format of the class today. So we are going to go through the syllabus. I'm going to show you kind of the architecture of the class. I built this class a number of years ago. I've been teaching it for a while, and it's been evolving over time. And the format that we have now, I settled on maybe 2 or 3 semesters ago, do you think? And it's gone pretty well. I actually offer this class in summer session as an online class. And the reason I was here wandering around trying to figure out where to put the video camera is for 2 reasons. One is the online class is utilizing the in-class lectures from during the semester. So students in the summer, they just finished a couple weeks ago. It's a 12-week class. And they watch the semester lectures as part of their content. And then we do Skype office hours, because a lot of them are out of state, or actually in some cases out of country. I had one from Malaysia taking the class this summer. That was kind of cool. I tried to convince her to come visit me in my office hours, but it wasn't going to work. So you are being, you may be on video. If you ask a question, I'll probably repeat the question so it's on the recording, and it's not taped. It's not canned. It's just as the class would appear. Okay, so if I make a blooper, or if I answer a question wrong, or I have to correct myself, or someone challenges the question and says, I don't get that, isn't it this way? And I say, oh yeah, that's right. All of that shows up on the recording. Okay, it's not a recording studio. It's actually a recording of a live lecture, which is kind of nice. Students really like that. And you're like, great, well, how does that help me? Because I don't care about the students in the summer of 2017 whatsoever, right? So if that's you, so be it. And here's how it benefits you. All of these recorded lectures we post online on a YouTube site. And so you can download and stream them. And why would you want to do that? Right? It's a little narcissistic, Dr. Keller. Why would I want to watch you again? Well, the reason you're going to want to watch it again is if you are wrestling with a critical topic. Maybe I go too fast is what I've heard. I mean, that's in quotes. You go too fast. Okay? I'm not agreeing that I go too fast. I'm just saying I've heard the comment on occasion. I will address that here in a minute. So if I go too fast and you want to go back and revisit some of the topics that we cover, or just a segment, you actually have that tool. And I'll post them, if not the same day, definitely in the next day or 2. Okay? And it's a wonderful study tool because I only make test questions for my lectures. And the third reason I do it, so it's for future students, it's for current students, it's actually for me. You're like, wow, you like to watch yourself again? The reason that I listen to it is when I'm building the tests, I want to make sure that I'm building a fair test. And I've taught this for a number of years, and I'm sure I'm going to step out on a limb. You ran into a class or 2 where a professor swears that they actually covered a topic, and 75% of the class is in the study section and says, he didn't cover that, he's crazy. Well, we probably are, okay, because we're old and decrepit and can't remember very well. But if we have a recording of it, we can go back and actually look to see, was that this semester or was that 8 years ago that I talked about that? And so I can double check and make sure I covered the material, and you can actually have a recording to say, that question 12 on the exam, you didn't cover that. Oh yeah, I did. Well, let's look at your video lectures, Dr. Keller. And you can do this in a nice way, okay, not like trial by jury or anything. And then we can have sort of documentation that we did cover that. So I found it actually fairly valuable to record these and provide them. I used to do it just for myself, so that I knew what I covered, because I get students saying, I don't think you covered that. And I say, oh yeah, look at, watch this in my office, I'll show you the video, and this is what we have. Now we can actually just look at that together, okay, on a YouTube site. So it works pretty well. So don't be afraid to ask a question. I might repeat it, and you're like, why does he keep repeating the question? Just so that we can, I'm the only one mic'd, this way we can actually get the question on the recording. So, first thing I want to talk about, before we get into all of the nitty-gritty, is a little bit about my background. So, I am not a pathologist. So the way a pathologist becomes a pathologist is one of two routes. They will study like you are, and they will pursue a medical pathology route. And that means that they're going to go into a clinical realm, and they have to go to medical school. So they'll go to medical school, they finish 4 years of medical school, and then they will have experienced the pathology rotation in their clinical rounds, and they'll probably go do a residency in clinical pathology. Okay, so that's not me. The other way a pathologist becomes a pathologist is through veterinary school, which is equally challenging. And some would argue it's more difficult to get into veterinary school than it is to get into medical school because there's fewer numbers of veterinary schools. We don't have a vet school in Arizona, for example. I think the closest one is Colorado State University in Fort Collins. I don't know geographically if that's the case, but that's the closest one that I go to because it looks like Flexner. So those are the two pathology routes. Then what you have are people like me that are pretend pathologists. Okay, so yeah, your professor is a pretend pathologist. All semester long, I'm going to pretend to know this stuff. Okay, I've been doing it for a while. We use a lot of pathology and histopathology in my research. And I first learned how to do pathology in graduate school. And we would do all of our own sectioning and staining and analysis. And I am a nerd, so I liked it. And then I just kept doing it over the years. And slowly but surely, it became more of an interest and more incorporated into my research. Then it became to such a level of interest, I started to help start a company. And we started a company that was a digital pathology company, and we spun that out of Flagstaff, and it's actually located in Boulder, not Fort Collins. So we still use a lot of pathology. I've studied it for a long time. How long? I did my Ph.D. In 2001 is when I finished. Okay, so that was 15 years ago. So I've been doing it for about 20 years. I was in grad school for 5 years. So about 20 years of actually doing histopathology. I've been teaching here at the university since 2008. So I've been teaching, not this class, but teaching here since 2008, 2016. So that's 8 years ago. And I've been teaching this class for probably a good 5 years of that time. And it used to be I taught it 3 times a year. Fall, spring, and then online in the summer. Now I just teach it in the fall, and I teach it online in the summer, and I do research in the spring exclusively for the university. So my background, I graduated from the University of Arizona in 2001 with my PhD, and then I went straight into industry. And I went to Southern California, and I worked for a startup company there making early skin grafts. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I got recruited by a local medical device company known as W.L. Gore & Associates. And I worked for Gore for about 5 years. And then I left that, started a consulting business, started my own research lab, and started doing startup biotech again in Southern California, but from Flagstaff. And I've done a lot of startup company work since that time. We're talking about 08, 09 now. And then my teaching load started growing, and I came on full-time somewhere around that time, 9 or 10, and started teaching a regular rotation. And this class was part of that regular rotation. I have 2 laboratories. One is off campus, which is a private lab. So that's where we do all the super secret stuff that I can kill you if I tell you about. So we won't go there. I'm just kidding. I can talk about it. But that's where we do all the industrial stuff, like companies that sponsor the research. They want to make products and sell them. The evil capitalists. And then I'm a total house divided. I'm very schizophrenic because that's the capitalist side, right? And then the liberal side, or sort of the for human benefit, is here at the university. So I have a lab here, an academic lab. It's actually only been in existence for about a year. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, the university said, we want you to set up a lab on campus. I said I like teaching, so you can still teach, but you just teach less. So I actually had to let a couple classes go. And I see some faces of students that were in some of those other classes that I don't teach anymore. This is the only class I do teach. So I guess it was my favorite. But there's a reason for that. I like the lower division classes as well. In fact, when I first started teaching here, I taught Biology 100 for non-majors. So these were people that would look at me and go, what the hell is a cell? Like, you don't know what it is? You know, it's like where my buddy was last night. You know? Yeah, we have some work to do. So I started there just because I like teaching. That's why I came back to the university. I really enjoy teaching. And I was doing the research for a long time outside of the university. And then the university kind of coached me into putting a lab here on campus. So now a lot of my educational focus is grad students. But this semester, about 100 of you, there's about 100 of you in here, are a big focus for me this semester. So that's kind of my background. I kind of live a split life of 1 foot in industry and 1 foot in academia, and I have 2 labs. So then the next question that usually comes up is, oh, do you have any research opportunities in your lab, Dr. Keller? So we do, but usually those lab opportunities start towards the end of the spring semester. Students come on in the summertime, and the students that are in my lab right now, there's about 5 undergrads, they've been working all summer learning how to do research. Okay? So we're totally full right now, but you know, as the year goes on, students graduate, students, you know, fail, and we fire them, just kidding. And you know, there's natural, you know, attrition. So those opportunities are usually showing up kind of in the springtime. But there's lots of other labs on campus that do undergraduate research, and so you definitely, if that's an interest of you as we're talking about these things in the semester, you should definitely look into that. Any questions before we kind of start going into the boring stuff of, well, maybe that was really boring, but maybe the other boring stuff of like syllabus and what's expected of you and all that. All right. Well, we're going to meet every week from 2:20 to 4:20. We'll have a break somewhere about halfway. You can stretch, do a bio break, that kind of thing. But my goal today is to kind of get you oriented. We're going to have a real lecture. We'll have some real material. As the calendar would have it, next week we already are taking a day off, right? So I won't see you again for 2 weeks. But there's going to be things that you're going to need to do before I see you 2 Mondays from now. Okay, and I will remind you via BB Learn. Anybody who did not get the BB Learn announcement that we had class today? Okay, just this one person. Okay. Are you getting other BB Learn announcements, or did you just haven't checked it?
No, I checked it. I haven't received anything.
Okay. Did you register recently? Do you work out of your grade? Really? You do? You don't? Oh, okay. Sorry. That place is cool.
I haven't sent anything to you yet. But I got the response, so that shows up on my Louis account.
Okay. Did you enroll recently? 4 weeks ago. Okay. Everybody else, show of hands, did everybody else get the email that came out? Or the BB Learn announcement that probably pushes to your mobile device? Okay, so that's important for you to check into that, so we should look into that. Because I will try to coach you in the few couple of weeks, first couple of weeks of class, just because we have some assignments. We have pre-tests, or pre-quizzes and post-quizzes every week, before and after lecture. Okay? So I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the strategies of why we do that. So you're going to need a textbook. This is the 8th edition cover. And you're going to need either the 8th edition or the 9th edition. So I did get some emails from students saying they only have the 9th edition in the bookstore. The 8th edition will work just fine. But the 8th or 9th edition has slightly different page numbers. And so on BB Learn, under announcements, there's actually a table that shows you the conversion between the 8th edition and the 9th edition. And it looks something like this. Oops, you can't see that. It looks something like this. Okay? So if you have the 8th edition, you're looking in the first column. You have the 9th edition, you're looking in the second column, or third column, excuse me. Second and third column. And you can see where there are some slight differences, like get here to the nervous system. In the 8th edition is chapter 23, and in the 9th edition is chapter 22. Okay? So you just need to pay attention to that. I do this because, I mean, a lot of professors will just adopt a single book, but the thing about doing it that way is if you can find a cheaper book, I want you to save money. And so sometimes giving you 2 options, you can find it used. It gives you a variety of different options. Now, the other thing that I've done is in the resource folder, and I'll show you where it is, the first chapter that you need to do the first pre and post quiz is actually in a PDF format. So you're allowed by copyright to provide 10% of a textbook for free and not void copyright. Okay, so I gave you the first chapter. You can download so you get started while you've ordered your textbook, or you haven't even thought of it yet and you need to go get it. It'll get you through the first couple of weeks of class. Okay, so I'll show you where to find that. There's also this textbook on reserve in the Klein Library. So if you're really in a bind and you can't get your textbook until 3 weeks or 4 weeks into the class, you could actually go to the Klein Library and check out that textbook. And if it becomes such a demand, I get emails when students check it out, I'll put another one in there. Okay? You're going to need BBLearn access, and you're going to need internet access. If you're anywhere on campus, you have internet access. You may or may not benefit from these. Now, this is the thing, okay? I remember when I was sitting in your seat, I know it was a long time ago, but I still remember what it was like. I would get nervous because there were always those students in the class that had their colored pens or their highlighters, right? And I would sit next to them, and I didn't use any of that stuff. But they're like, right? And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to fail this class. Okay. Well, some of you don't learn with colored ink. So then don't spend the money going and getting colored ink. It's not going to help you. Okay? Some of you learn better by watching the lecture again a second time. Some of you don't. Right? So these are just resources and tools that are available. Hopefully by now you've figured out what kind of learner you are. If you haven't, there are actual tools on campus in order to help you figure that out. So highlighting, I would use one colored highlighter. Like the really important stuff was like, oh, he said possible test question. Right? And that's what I would highlight. So some of you draw and you're very artistic. Others, like me, you couldn't draw a stick figure, right? If somebody helped you with it. You would actually ruin it. That's what, Dad, stop, you're messing up my pictures. So don't feel like you got to get this. This is what optional means. Optional means you do not have to do this. Okay. But what you do need to really think about is adequate study time. So I'm going to ask this question. This is the first quiz question for the semester. What goes in that blank?
6.
The minimum number of hours that you need to be studying for a 3-credit class. That's what this is. I saw a hand go immediately up. Is it 9? I don't know, is it? 3 hours times 3, it's 9. I would agree with math. You know, a physiologist, math, I even do that, my phone's way over there. Did you have an answer other than 9? 6. Uh-oh, we got 9, now we got 6. Uh-oh. She uses markers. Any other ideas? It's going to totally depend on you. It's going to totally depend on you. Now, ABOR puts out a guideline that says 2 to 3 hours per week is the minimum study requirement per unit. So then both of you would be correct, okay? So somewhere between 6 to 9 hours per week is probably what ABOR is going to suggest you be studying. Now, some of you are going to say that's not nearly enough time. Some of you will say, I don't need that much time right now because it's really easy. And there may be certain units or sections that are more complicated for you that take you more time, and you need to kind of be aware of that. All right? But what I will tell you is it's going to take a time investment to do well in this class. This is a challenging course. Here's one of the reasons I like this course, though, is the vast majority, if I look at the distribution, okay, faculty are always talking about distribution of grades, right? And usually it comes like this. Are you going to curve the exam, Dr. Keller? Why? Well, like, half the class failed, and the average score was a 58%. Yeah, that's good. Here's the distribution, right? They show you like this curve, and they send you away with the curve saying, that's the answer. That's why I don't curve it. And you're like, I'm totally confused. Over half the people failed the class. So I do not curve this class at all. If 90% of the class fails, 90% of the class fails, but that's usually not the case. That's never been the case. Okay? 90% of this class passes, historically. And distribution, if you draw a distribution of grades, this is a bell curve right in the middle. The largest peak should be the largest number of C's, because that's the average grade, is a C, a 75%. Usually the curve is skewed a little bit over, meaning that more students get A's and B's than get any other grade in this class. So why is that? I've had colleagues say, well, maybe you should be curving it, like you need a 93% or higher to get an A, because the students are doing so well. Or maybe you need to write your exams harder. So the answer that I have is, I want to set the expectations of this class from the beginning, so you know what you need to do in order to earn the grade that you desire. So there's some key words in there. Let me restate that. I want you to understand what the expectations of you are in order to earn the grade that you desire. So I don't, Dr. Keller, how come you gave me a B? I didn't give you anything. That's what you earned. Well, I was really close to an A. I understand that. But the first day of class, remember, I showed you what the grade distribution chart looked like, and I told you what the cutoffs were, and that won't change throughout the entire semester, and I promise. And there are some familiar faces in the class that have in other classes and know that those cutoffs, I'll stick with them. I will honor those. Sometimes it's to your benefit, and unfortunately, sometimes it's not. And what it is it's consistent. And so you can count on it, and you don't have some funny curve you got to try to figure out. I don't know what you're thinking today. Right? Maybe you have a little bit more wine, the curve goes, right? So no, none of that happens. Maybe the wine, but the curve doesn't move, okay? So I want you to know what is going to be expected of you, and you will have to make an investment. It's a tough class, but students generally do really well in this class, and here's why. By this time, if this field or study direction wasn't for you, you've self-selected to do something else. So at a 300 level class, you're taking upper division courses. There's 181, 182 most likely under your belt, 201, 202, and 205. So there's 5 prerequisite classes that you've likely had before you get here. And you've had some feedback on whether you can do this. Okay? And if you're like, ooh, I think I slid by some of those prereqs. Well, I'm not going to kick anybody out if you've gotten into this class. But if you haven't had those prereqs, I think you need to come talk to me to understand what's going to be involved in this class. And I promise, I'm not kicking you out at this point if you're already in. Okay, so a traditional class format, right? There's very little preparation, probably like today, right? Maybe you took a shower, maybe not. Maybe you all put clothes on, which is nice. You all look nicely dressed and appropriate for class. But there's very little preparation that took place. And then I sit up here and I orate for a couple hours. And studies show that a certain percent is going to be retained, and the rest is, it's gone. So, one catch for that is, you missed something, you didn't retain it, go back to the lecture. Watch that segment where you fell asleep, and start there. Okay? Well, then you start going away from lecture, and you're trying to work on either worksheets or quizzes or the exam, and you just do miserable. So the way that we've designed this, there's a number of us over the years, have looked at this hybrid, and it has all sorts of different names, right? So this is back when hybrid wasn't cool. Now it's like blended and flipped, and now I don't know, they're gonna call them like Ollie classrooms or something. I don't know what the new word is, but back in the day, like 6 years ago, we just decided that we're gonna try to encourage students to do more of the material diving into outside of class. In the old days, like Stone Age days, when I was in college, we had a special name for this. It was called, you ready? Studying. Yeah, we called it studying. I don't know if they call it that anymore, but that's what it was. So the idea of studying before you come to class, or preparing before you come to class, is a really good idea, and you're going to have to do it. Because there are points and expectations set for you before you show up here. If you're going to come here with some confused questions, like, I don't know why I missed that question. I don't understand this part of the lecture or that part of the reading. You can ask some questions in class, or you might get your questions answered by the lecture. You're going to walk away and do some out-of-class activities. For example, like an SI session. So, the other thing is, how many of you have had SIs before? How many of you have used them? Okay, that's a pretty good percentage. How many of you have had an SI for a 300 or a 400 level class? Like a couple. Did you see how the numbers just dropped off? So you can't see what I see, but, and this is for the benefit of our home audience. When I asked about SI sessions, there's probably a good 60 to 70% of you that raised your hand. When I asked about 300 or 400 level class SIs, there was literally, raise them again, I think there were 4. 1, 2, 3. Didn't you have your hand up, or are you just scratching? Okay. 3. 3 had SIs at 300 and 400 level. So, oh, you did too, so you were the 4th. So, it's not normal, and I applied for SI assistance for this class in the very beginning, and they kept denying me. Okay, it's like, asking that person out for a date and keep saying no. Eventually, I convinced them, and the way I convinced them was by feedback from your peers. So your peers would review this class. You guys have done that, right? You provide feedback in class, and I took those. They're anonymous, but I can still tally the number. And I went to the SI department, and I said, hey, I know that we're not a freshman or sophomore level class, and it's not a huge class, although this is getting big. Back in the day, it was like 35 students. But these are very dedicated students. They need extra assistance, and they're asking for this resource. And I'm only the messenger. I'm saying that we need this resource because look at the student evaluations. This is the 2nd semester in a row. This is the 3rd semester in a row. This is the 4th semester in a row, otherwise known as 2 years in a row. I've had a new cohort of students all asking for the same thing. So finally I said, okay, he's not going to stop, so let's just shut him up and give him an SI. And we've had some phenomenal SIs. I'm going to introduce Iridian. Go ahead and wave your hand. She's up here at the front. Some of you know her. She's going to have a little time here during class when I'm going to more formally introduce her. But this is a phenomenal group work activity that has demonstrated quantitative evidence of improving student performance in this class. Not just broadly in the classroom, in this class. I've actually seen scores go up as a result of having the SI present. So it's a very atypical resource, but your predecessors asked for it, and so it's evidence of a couple things. One is the voice of the student matters. Number 2, we listen to you. Okay? Number 3, that it's effective and it's still here because there's value. Okay. So all of this is going to lead to better comprehension and exam performance. It doesn't look like she has better comprehension, but that's phenomenal comprehension, which her body language just screams comprehension. Okay. So the idea is to create a multifaceted study environment or learning environment where you're not just coming once a week for a 2-hour lecture. Why once a week for a 2-hour lecture? Well, I discovered that getting this material to you in one setting and having you do pre-work and then post-work was better than separating out over 3 different days or 2 days and trying to pepper in outside work. It was just too much. Students were saying, well, if we're going to do this much out-of-class work, I don't really want to have as much in-class work. And so I said, okay, so let's try it this way. So the 1 lecture a week is all you have to listen to, and then everything else is outside of that. And we get it over with at the beginning of the week. Okay? We've got self-study, we have pre and post quizzes, we have in-lecture, typical, traditional, pedagogical instruction. So what this class is not, and I'm going to be very careful about how I say this class is not going to be me coming in here and turning you all loose to teach each other. Does that make sense? Like, I'm actually going to come prepared with a lecture and give you a traditional lecture, traditional instruction. So it's not a hybrid or a flipped classroom or a online / in-class lecture where I don't really do much work. I still give you a 2-hour worth of lecture. It's just everything else is on top of that, okay? So, I want you guys to group up, because I want to encourage this. You're going to see each other in SI section. You're going to hear a little pitch about SI here in a minute. We've kind of redone the way we introduce SI, but it totally fits with the philosophy of how I think this class should work. So right now, we're going to talk about a different philosophy, and I want you guys to huddle up, introduce each other. Like I said, hi, my name is Rob. Your name is Erica. Hi, Erica. What did you do this summer? Work. Me too. Wow, that was interesting. So we have something in common already. Look at that. And that's what that looks like. Okay, introduce yourself. Maybe ask about the summer. I could ask what kind of work did you do? Starbucks. I like Starbucks. See, we have 2 things in common. Okay, we both worked and we both like Starbucks at some level. Okay? And then maybe we can talk about this Chinese proverb. Are you Chinese? Actually, you are. Wow, I am not, so we don't have that in common. But, okay, she can interpret first that she's Chinese, so maybe we'll let you go first, and then I'll go second. Okay? Do you see how that works? So why don't you guys try that? So how many of you got to know your neighbor? A little bit? I mean, only like 3 of you? What were the other 97 talking about? So you got to know your neighbor a little bit. And how many of you, raise your hand if you or your neighbor had a different viewpoint or interpretation? Just one set. Everybody else completely agreed. Okay. Everybody else was working all summer, right? Like Starbucks, and we're both Chinese. I can see that's probably not the case. Okay. So just these two gentlemen will go first. Let's hear what your interpretation. One of you go first, the other one share the different opinion.
You go first. Well, it was her that disagreed, so.
Oh, look at that. Throwing your neighbor under the bus. I love it.
She doesn't,
All right.
she doesn't eat fish, so she said he would starve regardless. So.
Oh, who doesn't eat fish? You don't eat fish. Okay, so you couldn't teach fishing, is what you're saying.
I said fish was gross.
What's that?
I just said fish was gross.
You just said fish was gross. Okay, so you got fish is gross from this. Okay. And you don't eat fish. Gotcha. Okay. I know this isn't necessarily like vegan sensitive, but I mean it is still like a legit Chinese proverb. So let's just go with it. Okay. What was the other interpretation other than fish is gross?
Well, if you give a man a fish to feed his family, you can feed his family for a day because you gave him that fish to feed. But if you teach him to fish, then he can catch the fish and feed his family for the rest of his life.
Did you all hear that? So if you give let's make it more general, neutral. So if you give a person a fish, right, you teach them, you give them the opportunity to feed their family for a day. But if you give them the ability to fish, then you provide them with a way to feed their family for beyond the day. Okay? Any other interpretations other than fish are gross, and then this lifetime versus daily? Really? Everybody else falls in the same two categories. Okay, how many are fishes grocers? Okay, one other in the back. You gotta sympathizer back there. Everybody else is agreeing with the lifetime. So don't you think there could be some other interpretations? Okay.
I see this as an opportunity for preventative care versus immediate treatment.
Philosophies of the world, look at that. Preventative care versus immediate treatment. Okay, what are some other interpretations here? Yes, in the back.
I feel being independent and depending on someone.
Independence versus depending on somebody. I like that. Not that fish are gross is wrong, or that daily feed versus long lifetime feeding. Do you see where we're going here? Let's keep going. Yeah.
Teach someone to problem solve instead of giving them an answer.
Teach someone to problem solve rather than give them an answer. Isn't that kind of what we're doing right now? So at surface value, this proverb seems, if you just thought about it, at surface value, you might just have one or two interpretations. But now that we're kind of extracting the way you guys look at this, maybe from different perspectives, okay? It's causing you to think, and you're going to see it maybe in a different light. So it's probably, in a lot of these proverbs, right, there are proverbs in a lot of different cultures, not just the Chinese culture. But there's proverbs that exist in lots of cultures. A lot of times they're so impactful because people interpret them in different phases or different experiences of life in different ways. And even though you read the same proverb over again, or saying over again, it might hit you in a different way. Okay, so trying to encourage you to think outside the box, number one. That's the point of the activity. Number two, trying to get you comfortable about sharing an idea that maybe is a unique idea, or that you're the only one that thinks it. Or maybe there's two of you that think fish are gross. Okay? So let's put this in a different context. How many of you are, if everything goes well in life and it's perfect, according to the plan that you have, are medical school bound? Raise your hand. Let me see it. Be proud. Come on. You got to be bold if you're going to med school. Right? You can't be shy like, oh yeah. Let me see. Okay. All right. Now, keep your hands up. Joining the medical school. How many are going a research route, grad school of some sort? Master's degree, Ph.D. So keep your hands up. We're going to add to it. How about nursing school? Okay. More hands went up. Keep them up. your hand gets tired, you can support it. There's a gentleman here that's got a really nice strategy of like, oh my gosh, this is like, really, we're doing this? So you can switch arms if you get tired. You switch arms, okay? Put it on your neighbor's head in front of you if you can't hold it up too much longer, okay? Okay, so we have med school, grad school, nursing school. How about PT school? How about dental school? Dental hygiene? How about chiropractor school? How about anything in the health field? Occupational therapy, radiation technology. Okay, I'm missing a couple of people that I didn't mean to leave out. So where did I leave out? Yeah, well, I think there might be two of you not ready for me. Physician assistant. Oh. I'd be a terrible palm reader. Okay, general biology straight into research. Maybe no grad school. Okay, that was good. See, some of you just gave up on the hand raising. Look at you. Some of you are like, oh. All right, so if I called you, raise your hand. If I just one more time, just look around. Look around. Okay, most everybody is including research without grad school. So everybody raise your hand. Everyone in the room should have their hand raised. Me too. Raise your hand. Okay, look at everyone's hands raised. There's 102 of us in here right now, including Iridia and I. Okay, let's put our hands down. So let's play out a scenario. We've got Dr. Winterfeld. Dr. Winterfeld. Dr. Stark, actually. Dr. Ned Stark, my apologies. So you are Dr. What's your last name?
Sprout.
Dr. Sprout. Okay. Who's another aspiring physician in the back? Yes, miss in the back with the beautiful hair. Yeah. Both of you have beautiful hair. Yours is whitish color. Were you both going to med school? Who's going to med school? Okay, that's what I thought. Doc, what's your last name? Grace. Grace?
Grey's Anatomy.
Grace. Ooh, Dr. Grace. Okay, so stand up. Both of you stand up and look at each other. I'm your patient. Okay, because this is a real life thing that could happen. Right? I will be old and a geriatric patient. And you two are going to be my physicians. Okay? This is going to be really awkward, but it's going to be kind of fun for me. Okay? And I will probably fire one of you if you did poorly in this class. But let's pretend you both get A's in this class and you just remarkably did well in medical school. And you are a geriatric specialist for old people. And I'm your patient. Okay? Do you guys look at each other? Don't look at me. You guys are colleagues. Do you think you're going to agree? Do you guys know each other?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Do you guys think you're going to agree on every little detail about my care?
Probably not.
Really? This really disturbs me. This is about me. This is all about me. So, Dr. Grace, you're not going to agree with everything with Dr. Sprout about my care. Probably not. So how are you guys going to listen to each other about my well-being? This is really important for me to understand how this is going to work. What's going to happen between the two of you?
We probably like meet up and talk about what we disagree on.
Okay. Okay. So there's 2 points I'm trying to glean from this. One of it goes to this. So how do you think this relates? If we get test results from something about my health, do you think you're both going to interpret it exactly the same way?
No.
Possibly not. Do you think it's important for you guys to listen to each other's vantage and perspective? Maybe one has a background from a residency program that was somewhere else than the other. Okay, so you guys are going to have to be collegial and cooperative to give me the best, listen carefully, the best possible medical care possible. Okay? It's very important. Okay, let's give a round of applause. Thank you very much. Dr. Sprout, Dr. Grace. The other thing that I want to show you guys with that is, if I write a test question, do you think that everyone in this room is going to agree that it's a perfect test question? There's some laughter, some snickers, there's some obvious body language, shaking of the head. No, I'm human. I'm going to probably make some mistakes, and I might interpret the question differently than you interpret it. So how are we going to interact, given our previous history with Dr. Grace and Dr. Sprout? What's that? How are we going to interact about the test question? Discuss what was wrong, come together, talk it over, maybe try to hear each other's perspective. If you guys don't get practice interpreting things in different ways and figuring out how to disagree in a healthy environment, how do you think you're going to turn out as good as Dr. Sprout and Dr. Grace? I mean, remember, this is about me. So if it's my medical care, I want to make sure you guys behave like they did and you're getting along. If we don't practice how to do that in an environment, I mean, maybe I'll just make a bogus question to see how you guys respond. No, I won't. But that would kind of be fun. But this isn't psychology. This is pathology. But it's important for you to come professionally to that disagreement and be able to voice your opinion in a healthy, professional manner. Because if you don't practice it, you're never going to be able to do that in the workplace. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the course syllabus. So the course syllabus, it looks, we're going to go directly to it. You're going to see the only requirement is a textbook or access to a textbook. Okay? You don't have to pay for anything online, no clickers, nothing additional. Maybe other than Starbucks gift cards for Dr. Keller. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Just kidding. I really don't drink that much coffee. Now, wine membership. Only if you're of age. But the only requirement is this pathology textbook, and you have a couple of options available to you. So let's look at the syllabus. I'm going to go behind the lecture because I want to be able to pull up the syllabus. Whoops. There it is. And come over here. And in the syllabus, you're going to see the total number of points in this semester is 520. You guys see that? So we've got 3 exams. They're all cumulative. Of course, exam 1 is the least amount of cumulative material because it's all cumulative, right? Or cumulative from old stuff. But exam 2 will have a little bit of exam 1 material, not straight questions, but concepts. And then the final is really like a 3rd exam. It's going to be over the new material plus maybe 25% cumulative over the semester. There's 100 points per exam, so you have 300 total points. You've got 12 pre-quizzes, all online. I'll show you where to find them. You have 12 online post-quizzes, all online. I'll show you where to find them. Each worth 10 points. I'm going to drop your lowest. Everyone has a bad week. It's inevitable. Okay? You get sick, you didn't realize it, you forgot, you go out of town, okay, you totally space it, you have other classes that you're involved in, you're working. I know many of you have jobs. So we have a 1 freebie. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's only 1 freebie. If it's an institutional excuse, like you play for the soccer team or you are involved in a scientific conference and you're going to be gone, I will make provisions for institutional excuses, but I'm setting expectations right from the beginning of the semester of what's required of you. So there's 520 total points, and I'm going to cut it off at 89.5, so standard rounding. So if you take 520 times 0.895, you do that in your calculator, that's exactly the number of points you need to earn an A. If you're 89.49 into the semester, what is your semester grade that you earn? A B. Let's do that one more time with slightly different math. If you have a 79.49 at the end of the semester, what have you earned? A C. Okay, it'll be that way today, it'll be that way at the end of the semester. Okay? Those of you that have had me in the past know that I'll stick to that scale. So you know exactly what's expected of you, and you know exactly what you need in order to earn the grade that you're looking to earn. We're not going to have any makeup quizzes, all those kinds of things, unless, of course, an institutional excuse. I'm not going to take attendance. At this point in your career, I don't think that's necessary. There's a little clause here about tricky questions or fairness. If you think I wrote a lame question, that's not evidence enough that it was a poor question. Okay? You can come to me, we can have a professional dialogue, we can practice that. I will probably point you to the literature, or what I mean by that is say, prove your point. And obviously the most immediate resource is going to be the textbook. Okay? But not everything in the textbook is perfect. Okay? So I want you, if you're going to prove your point, you may have to go outside of the textbook into the primary literature. How many of you are familiar with the primary literature? Does anybody know what that even means? Can I get a definition, someone that feels confident they know?
Scientific journal.
Scientific journal. Do you want to add to that? Same thing. Primary literature is a scientific journal that's typically a peer-reviewed journal. So that's not going to be like Time Magazine on the coffee table. It's going to be a peer-reviewed journal like Science or Nature or Cell. There's hundreds of them, literally. Okay. So you can do it that way. I do need to remind you that you're at a institution of learning, and integrity is hugely important. So I don't think I need to explain this, but I'm required to. So we'll have a zero tolerance policy for any of the following: plagiarism, cheating, fabrication, or fraud. If you have questions about those definitions, okay, you can see me. You could see Student Life, the Dean of Students, who's actually on your side, just so you know. I've got my own dean. Dean of Students is for your benefit. Plagiarism. This is if you try to do someone else's quiz. Okay, you're passing someone else's work off for your own. Or vice versa. You have someone else take the quiz for you. Cheating. An unfair advantage over everybody else. Right? We want it to be fair. We want it to be equal. As much as possible. All kidding aside, we joke a lot around here, but this stuff we take very, very seriously. Fabrication. Presenting something that's not true. Trying to tell a story that's not real. Okay? We've all seen how that plays out in the swimming arena, right? Fraud, attempting to deceive an instructor or an administrator or an officer at the university. Anybody who's employed by the university. That would actually include RSI. Any of this would extend between myself, the class, or RSI. Okay, so that stuff, the yucky stuff is out of the way. Let's look at what we're up against. Okay, so this is, was there a question? Yes?
Yeah, sorry. Do we need an access code right now?
Nope, you don't need an access code. You just need BBLearn access, which is probably your user ID and then your NAU login password. And that'll get you access to everything. I'll show you that next. This is essentially my contract to you guys. Now it says it's subject to change because I could get sick. Okay, something out of the ordinary could come up. My mother's actually battling cancer, so that does sort of hijack my day periodically. But things are kind of calmed down, and I've got a lot of new material for our cancer lecture. It's been a learning experience for me. But I do not foresee that I will miss this schedule or will have to change much unless something really unexpected happens, and I will communicate with you if that's the case. There is a online lecture that you're going to see from last year. Okay, you'll see me a year younger. Okay, and that's going to be October 3rd because I'm going to be at a conference. I'm going to be at a conference with some grad students and postdocs and presenting research and that sort of thing. So that is a scheduled event that I can't move because these conferences show up when they show up. So that's the only interruption that we're going to see. And you can see next week we have Labor Day, so we're not going to have anything next week. It's too complicated to try to have things early in the semester when we don't kind of get on a schedule. But by early October, we should be pretty dialed in. You'll see that exam 1 is on the 10th of October. And then you can see the schedule. Exam 2 is on the 14th of October. This is the Monday before Thanksgiving. I always get emails like, are we having class today? It's like, yo, yeah, it's just a regular day, you know. I know you're here enough to dig out, but you could probably burn some calories by coming to class using the brain before that. So please schedule your trip home Monday evening. So we'll have class on Tuesday. I don't care about the class on Tuesday. So don't miss my class. Okay, and then the final, this is according to the final exam schedule. I don't set that, the university sets that. It should not conflict with your schedule because they try to make sure that if you have a class on a Monday or a Wednesday at this time slot, then you take your final at that time slot, so it doesn't conflict with other scheduled classes. But for some reason, sometimes it conflicts with a laboratory exam or something like that. Sometimes it's a little bit of, my dad's bigger than your dad. So if my class is bigger than the class that you have the final, I will ask that professor, could you make some accommodations if they have like 6 students in their class and we have 100? But usually we can figure it out on a case-by-case basis. But I'm hoping, I would check now, that you don't have a conflict. Secondly, don't schedule your flight home for the holidays until, give yourself, you're flying out of Flagstaff, they're pretty crazy about you getting there 30 minutes prior. So make sure you don't leave any earlier than, I would say, 3:30, okay, out of Flagstaff on Wednesday. Like, I got a final on Thursday. Well, I don't care about your final Thursday. Just don't miss mine, okay? So that's the schedule. You know what's happening. You can see there's page numbers here. Again, I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, you're responsible for everything, cover to cover. So I want you to read specific pages that are relevant to the topics that we're going to cover. My expectation is you read that before you come to class in your lecture on Monday afternoon. So you can read it over the weekend, you can read it on Monday morning. You also are going to need to take your pre-quiz before lecture. Now, you won't have that for 2 weeks, but it's open right now. Okay, so let's talk about that. The pre-quizzes, they're timed, 30 minutes. You don't need a code. It's in BB Learn. I'll show you where to find them. They're due by noon on Monday. So by lecture, you will have already completed the pre-quiz. And in order to complete the pre-quiz, you should have read the material. Because a lot of the questions will either come out of the textbook or they'll come off of my slides from lecture. Like, what? So click through the slides. Have them open. Have the book open. You can use your book, you can use the slides while you take the lecture, or while you take the pre-quiz. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But it'll close by noon on Mondays. There's nothing due today, there's nothing due next week on Labor Day. It's the 2 weeks from now, when we see each other again, that's when you will have had to have completed a pre-quiz. That's why I want your BB Learn's announcements to be working, so you don't forget, because that's a lot of time between now and then. It's a 30-minute timed quiz. There's usually 5-ish questions. Okay, 10 points, so 2 points per question. And the pre-quiz questions are a little bit easier than the post-quiz questions. The post-quiz questions are due on Friday by 11:59 p.m. So before you go out, make sure that you have, right? If you get to the party a little early, like, hey, did you actually take, Dr. Grace, did you take the quiz? Oh, no, I didn't. Hey, hold my pin and tail on the document for a second. I'm going to go take my quiz. Okay? So 11:59 p.m., okay, by Friday. But they're open all semester, starting today. Everything is open. So if you know you're going to be on a trip and you're going to be away and you're going to miss a week of class, you are adult professional students, and I plan to treat you that way as long as you continue to demonstrate that that's the way you should be treated. So if you need to go to a conference like I'm going to a conference, you know that probably on Tuesday or Wednesday I can watch the lecture. Okay? And then I know at my conference, as long as I have Wi-Fi in my hotel, I can take my post-quiz. Say, maybe you don't want to risk it. You say, you know what? I'm actually going to read it ahead of time. I'm going to do the pre-quiz ahead of time, see if I have any questions. Maybe email Dr. Keller. Maybe look at the lecture from last year, because it's still up there. Okay? And then I'll take the post-quiz, the pre-quiz, and do everything before I leave town. And they don't have to worry about missing anything. You could do the entire semester this week. Everything is open. Randy almost had a heart attack. She probably going to tell you, I do not recommend that. Okay? But I'm just trying to tell you, there's a lot of thought that's gone into the organization of this class. It's all laid out in front of you. Okay? There's no guesswork. And so you know what's expected of you, and if you know you're going to miss something, you can plan ahead. Okay? Questions on the pre and the post quiz? Yes?
More than one attempt, you get one attempt.
You get one attempt. One attempt.
It has to be on one sitting.
In 30 minutes with 5 questions, I would do it in one sitting because the clock keeps rolling. But if it kicks you out, you lose. If you're in Starbucks, I should take that story. If you're in McDonald's and the Wi-Fi signal is a little wonky and it kicks you out, log right back in because it'll still let you in. And if you hit save, it'll save your work. But after 30 minutes, if you're like, oh, well, I'll do it later, well, it'll be too late. That clock will have already ran out. So you probably want to do it in one sitting. But if you get kicked out of the screen, go ahead and log back in. And it should let you in, okay? Okay, so let me show you where to find this. Alright, so this is the shelf. And this is where this announcement for the first lecture showed up. And if you click on more announcements, this is a BB Learn. Here's the chart that I was telling you about. And there's some old relic, how to print slides, some stuff on, here's chapter 1. You can look in the content folder to get a PDF of chapter 1. Here's some videos on Lucas Cycle, a question that came up like 3 years ago on acetaminophen. We'll talk about that. Some dendritic cell questions. I saved some of these just because, this is a fun link, Superhumans. Have you guys ever watched those? No? Oh, you're students, you have to study all the time. Well, over the holiday, try watching some of these Superhumans. Physiology is really cool. So this is where you're going to see all the announcements. That's all the old stuff. The new stuff will show up up top. Okay, so this screen looks a little different than my screen. I think it's because that's weird. There's supposed to be stuff over here. All right, I don't know why it's doing that. I might have to get my computer up at the break.
I think you're in edit mode.
Edit mode?
Up the top, I think.
Oh, maybe that's why. Edit mode's off. Well, there should be like a panel over here I can't get to.
Click that blue line.
What's up?
Click the blue line on the left.
Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. You guys are awesome. Okay. Course content. To go to course content, here's the syllabus. Click in here, you can grab the syllabus. Here's really one of the most important folders, weekly tasks. Go to weekly tasks. It's all organized based on the week. Okay, so you go to week 1. Here's the introductory lecture, and then cell injury and death, which is the first lecture that we'll get to, most likely in 2 weeks. Okay, and there's no quiz in there. But if you go back to weekly content, you go to week 2, there's going to be nothing in there. You go to week 3, when we see each other again. Here you go. Here's that cell injury and death lecture. That's the PowerPoint. Here's the pre-quiz that's due by 9:12 at noon. Here's the post-quiz. So if I click on this, that's all you need to do. It's going to give you some information, and you just hit begin, and it'll start the clock, and it'll turn the quiz on. Okay? Make sense? Pretty simple. The other resource that I want to show you is, and this is on the syllabus, this is the YouTube site. If you go to pathology, here is all the lectures for the entire semester from last fall. Okay? So if you need to work ahead, you can. You'll just get last fall's lecture. Unless you want to, wait until Monday afternoon or Tuesday, maybe Tuesday sometime when I post it. But this is on YouTube, and here's the link. You'll find that link on my syllabus up at the top. Oops, sorry. Bless you. Right here. That'll take you right to that YouTube link. Okay? So BB Learn Access, YouTube link, syllabus, format for the semester. Questions? Need a break?
I have a question.
Question.
On the honors undergraduate students, is that applicable to us if we are an honors student, or?
It can be. So if you're an honor student in the honors college, I don't believe anybody is registered for this class as an honors section. You can. We just have to create a contract, and then we have to get it as a honors designation, and then here will be the differences. You'll have a term paper, and then you're going to have essay questions on top of the multiple choice questions on the exams. Okay? And then I think it's 320H is the designation. Okay, let's take a 5-10 minute bio break, and we'll come back.